welcome to the KM122 Bay. This is episode 122 of our Beekeeping podcast. Hi guys, we are Gary and Margaret.
We love honeybees, and we are KM122, and we are beekeepers who live in the Waitakere Ranges on the wild west coast of Auckland and New Zealand.
Yeah, and KM122 is a place where the beekeeping community can share a conversation and connect. And in this episode, we talk to Les Crowder from Austin, Texas, from the big old US of A.
We also, if that wasn't enough, build and sell beekeeping supplies. We teach beginner beekeepers and provide beekeeping services and advice. And we are the Bees Knees Club on Facebook.
Yeah, great to have you joining us today. And we know life is busy for you, so we appreciate you taking time to be here and have a listen to what Les has to say.
Yes, and this podcast is made possible by all our amazing patrons. Especially this month, we'd like to thank Mead Drinker Tyson. Mead Drinker Tyson has been supporting the KM122 Buzz since October 2016.
Wow.
That's right. And check out his podcast about mead making at Mead Maker. It's MEADMAKR.com.
Wonderful.
For all your mead making stuff.
Awesome.
Thanks for your support.
Yeah, guys, thanks for being part of the KM122 Buzz. And this interview was recorded in October 2017.
And the show notes of this podcast are kiwi.bz/Les, L-E-S.
Wonderful. And Les was recommended to us by one of our listeners, Langford Parton. So thanks, Langford, for sharing that with us. And it was well worth it. And it's amazing what shoes have got to do with this lot.
Exactly.
It's a real doozy, this one, guys. So enjoy this.
Yes, absolutely. We cover a lot of stuff in this show. It's awesome, and it was great to talk to Les back in October. If you would like to recommend someone like Langford did, you can go to kiwi.bz/guest. You can recommend someone that you admire or recommend yourself.
Absolutely. We'd love to chat with you, eh?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, well, Les Crowder is a beekeeper originally from New Mexico. He has devoted his adult life to the study and care of honeybees. He is dedicated to finding organic and natural solutions for problems commonly treated with chemicals.
He enjoys keeping bees in top bar beehives, and he's also the co-author of the book, Top Bar Beekeeping, Organic Practices for Honeybee Health. He started beekeeping when he was 15 by picking up a swarm with his granddad in New Mexico.
Wow, New Mexico, eh?
So, Les, what have you been working on lately?
I'm starting a filming project to take the book that I had written about top bar beekeeping and make sort of a series of videos. I'm looking at making some videos around the United States and Jamaica and possibly England also. So,
because you grew up in New Mexico, didn't you?
I did. I spent most of my life, especially my beekeeping, most of it was done in New Mexico, and then I moved to California for about 3 or 4 years, and now I'm in Austin, Texas.
I hear Austin's quite a nice place to live. How do you find it?
I like it. My wife is from Jamaica, and it's more Jamaica-like here. We can grow banana trees. The bees are doing well here. They're a little bit tropical in nature, sort of. People call them Africanized. I suppose that could be. Most of them are pretty easygoing, but they abscond and they're fairly nervous on the comb. So they're just more like tropical bees.
Do you have any Africanized bees in the area?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're definitely. Probably most of the feral bees have some level of Africanization. What seems to happen is that when the Africanized bees move in, it seems to be that the first pioneers are very fierce, and they tend to calm down, and then you've got a lot of beekeepers here breeding with them. And what we do is if we get a hive that's exceptionally cross, we requeen it because it's going to cause problems for the neighbors or whatever. But for the most part, they're very workable. You know, I work them without gloves, but just a veil and regular, just a shirt, no suit or anything.
What's this? You talked on the email about this We All Rise Together project. Can you tell us more about that?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's my idea that, you know, when I used to do pollination a little bit, and I would take bees from near Albuquerque, New Mexico, in top bar hives, up into California to pollinate almonds. And initially it was good money. It was kind of exciting and adventure. The bees were fine. Actually, the bees benefited from it, if anything. and I made a fair amount of money. But as they began spraying more and more fungicides in the almonds during the bloom, then I started getting my bees not doing well and just outright dying in the orchard. And so then I quit, doing it. And at one point, one of the almond growers said, well, we pay so much for pollination, it shouldn't matter if we kill the bees. And so what he had in mind was that I could just buy new bees, He had no idea how hard it was to get bees that were mite and disease resistant, that were well bred and everything, and to keep them alive all year and to move them and everything. And he thought that it was just something like you could just go to the store and get some more,
Yeah, kind of expendable.
Yeah, disposable. And so what I realized was that he's thinking he can step up this ladder, and one of the rungs of the ladder is pollination in bees. And he can just step on the bees to get himself up. But if he breaks the rung, he's going to fall. And so the only way we're going to rise is if we all rise together, is the way I like to put it. That we need to start developing farming systems in which we take care of all of the biological aspects of the farming system, including pollination, but also including, earthworms, the soil biology. And now, recently, a big company called Paramount Almonds with 80,000 acres hired a pollination biologist, and he's been saying the same thing. He said, we've got to learn to raise almonds and raise our own bees in the orchard and never kill a bee. And then we'll be really farming almonds properly. And another way that I look at we're not rising together very well. There's more and more evidence coming out that pesticides in agriculture are causing autism in our children. The autism has risen dramatically over the last few years, and different pediatricians have put it together and realized that farm workers have higher rates of autism, and it's because of their exposure to pesticides. As parents, that causes their children to become autistic. That's another place where we've thought, well, we can step on the cheap labor, and use pesticides that are damaging, but that is going to come back to haunt them. Someday we need to attach the cost of raising those children and some of the other potential diseases like cancer to the cause. In other words, if I drive and I kill somebody, I have to have liability insurance to pay for the damage I might cause. And yet pesticide companies are causing damage, and they're not paying anything for the repair of the damage, or can't really repair an autistic child. You have to just take care of him.
Yeah, take care of them for life.
Yeah. So we need to attach the cost of their care to the pesticide. And at that point, organic will become cheap very quickly. That's kind of my idea.
No, I agree. I mean, there's a cost to take something out of the environment, isn't there? And I think that cost hasn't been factored in by the pesticide companies or the farmers.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, have you heard of all the troubles in Argentina with all the pesticides and the children growing up with all disabilities and stuff around the farms? Have you heard about that?
I haven't seen about that. I'd like to learn. I'll look it up.
Yeah, it's just if you search pesticides in Argentina, it's shocking what's going on down there.
Yeah, because that's the kind of thing I'm interested in, is that we need to learn cooperation. We kind of tout competition as the driving force in capitalism and so forth. And really, we do an awful lot of cooperation. And that's where, in many ways, the best money is made. And nature has been cooperating. Plants and animals have agreed that the plants can make oxygen and the animals can make carbon dioxide. And we kind of cooperate in a grand scale there. And really, ecology is all about the interrelated cooperative strategies of many species of plants, animals, and fungus and bacteria in any given biome, and we all cooperate together. And that's what we've got to learn. We've kind of thought we could step out of nature, step above nature, or below it, or whatever you want to call it, away from it, and enrich ourselves in in ways that, first of all, we don't need, and second of all, that actually wind up deadening our lives and diminishing our future. So we need to learn how to cooperate again with each other and with, in particular, our lower paid workers, and then with the environment.
Exactly. Do you think men will ever realize that we're all connected?
I think we're going to either learn that or we're going to be told to get off the bus.
Yeah, that's it.
There's at some point you can only act really selfish for so long, and pretty soon you have no friends, nobody that wants to keep you on the bus. I remember when I was a kid, I would watch the astronauts land on the moon on the TV. And it was, amazing and wonderful and all that. And at one point they showed the astronaut squeezing a toothpaste tube into his mouth, and they said it was pureed Georgia peaches. And I remember thinking there as I was sitting there, and I don't even remember how old I was very young. So there he is on the moon, but he's eating peaches, just like I'm eating peaches. And there are still earthworms and honeybees feeding him on the moon. There's a long umbilical cord of bringing that to him there, but without the earthworms and the honeybees, he couldn't eat on the moon. And I don't really want to be on the moon. I'd rather be right down where the earthworms and the bees are.
Yeah, exactly.
And be right in the thick of that.
It's very dusty up there, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Not a lot going on up there.
And there's nothing to eat.
No bees or animals up there. No, I agree with you. I think the Earth is going to just suddenly it'll just become uninhabitable, and humans won't be able to stay here anymore. And the thing is, there's no other planet, is there?
I saw a poster somewhere. There is no planet B. I thought that was pretty good. We talk about Plan B, but there is no planet B. What gives me hope, though, is there's so many changes happening so fast, and the young people today, a lot of them here in the United States, we've kind of had the EPA had a big setback. There was hope of getting some things banned, and now the new EPA is saying, oh, we're all about business. We're not about, they're just kind of shunning the whole idea of protecting the environment. What is happening is that people are just saying, you know what, it's not going to happen with the government. We better do it ourselves. And there's a lot of projects, a lot of young kids getting into organic farming, a lot of young kids getting into seeding coral reefs and all these projects. And I don't know, sometimes, I mean, it's a big ship and it needs to be turned fairly quickly. But there is a lot of people turning it.
Yeah, that's positive, eh? That's really positive. Yeah, it's kind of shocking the things that your current president is saying about, that money's more important than looking after the environment. And, some of his statements have been quite, controversial is mild, isn't it?
Yeah, I find him mostly a pretty big embarrassment. He doesn't seem to think before he speaks a lot of times. And he gets himself in so much trouble. I think in a sense, America was looking for a bull in the china shop. And even with Barack Obama, he was a bit of, of a hope for change. Because we've gotten really tired of the same old, we have this kind of Republican, Democrat, game that we watch, but it doesn't produce any real change. Both sides are bought out by corporate interests. And we basically have a corporatocracy that lets us think, oh, you get to vote, and yay, team, go. And we needed a bull in the china shop. Bernie Sanders was going to be kind of the bull in the china shop for the Democrats, and he had a surprisingly good run, but got shut out. And Donald Trump was the bull in the Republican Party, and he's proven to be literally a bull. He's literally breaking things without fully understanding what he's breaking. In a way, that's what America wanted, was change. We've got to have some change.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good analogy, the bull in the china shop. I think you need to build a wall around him.
Yeah, exactly.
So he doesn't upset anyone.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a much cheaper wall than the wall he's proposing, yeah.
Build it around the White House and cut their phones off.
Yeah, exactly. Cut his Twitter account.
Yeah, disable his Twitter account. Have you heard the shocking news this week? They've released that 75% of the honey in the world has got neonicotinoids in it.
I saw that, and I guess I'm not terribly surprised.
No.
You know, they find that much of the food in the world today has glyphosate in it, too. So what we're doing is we're burying ourselves in low-level toxicity, and then we're wondering why we're all getting sick. It's absurd, you know. In America, we have simultaneous malnutrition and obesity. You know, we're eating tons of food that has all the nutrition stripped of it, and then little bits of poison that is all supposed to be below any level that would hurt us, but it's constant. Everything we eat has been tainted with pesticides.
And the thing about neonicotinoids is it's a cumulative effect of it, isn't it? So, I mean, what's that doing to people's brains over time?
Right. It's a very long-term and very durable neurotoxin. You know, the difference between honeybees and humans is that, well, we use acetylcholine. So nicotine is an acetylcholine analog. It's similar to acetylcholine. The problem with it is that we have receptors for acetylcholine that we can clean with an enzyme that removes the acetylcholine, but it can't remove the nicotine or the nicotinoids. And so the nerves, they fire when the nicotine hits them, and they keep firing, and it can't be removed, so it eventually kills the nerve and deadens that part of the brain. Now, in humans, we have other neurotransmitters besides acetylcholine, so, you know, it doesn't kill us outright the way it kills an insect, but it does damage, certainly.
I mean, there's been so many studies about the effect on bees, and nothing seems to change, eh? That's the frustrating thing.
No. You know, it may take some studies about humans. There was a Dr. Joel Foreman at Mount Sinai Hospital that's like either New York or Washington, D.C., I forget which, but I spoke with him briefly. And what he's showing is that if you take an infant, either in utero or even post-utero, our brains are actually developing until we're 25 years old. And so at some point, that infant's brain has a little tiny clump of cells that has been kind of dormant throughout its infant life. And then all of a sudden, at a certain stage in its development, those cells rapidly multiply and form a new brain organ inside the skull. And what they've found is that we've tested a lot of our pesticides on mostly, first of all, not humans, of course. And we found that it didn't seem to do much damage below a certain level, but we never tested it on humans when they were undergoing brain development. And what he's saying is that much lower doses seem to derail some of those brain development phases in human development. So what we're playing with, we didn't realize we're playing with fire. It could then lead to an autistic child or somehow a mentally damaged child. And we've done the same to the bees, of course. We've damaged them. And in some ways, we're better off if it just killed them. If it just flat out they couldn't breathe and they died, then we'd say, oh, it's toxic. But when it does a little bit of brain damage, we don't notice that until a few weeks later when they couldn't find the flowers, they couldn't find their way home, and the hive finally petered out. And we couldn't really figure out why it petered out because it wasn't immediately connected to the administration of the neonicotinoid.
I mean, that's the problem. They do short-term studies and not long-term studies, do they?
Exactly. That's exactly the problem. We need much more longer-term studies. And we need whole hive studies and field studies, And, of course, the industry's going to howl at that.
Yeah, exactly.
But, in the meantime, we pay the price. And
the other problem is that the industries are the people that test these things, aren't they?
Exactly. We let them test them. And, there was a study I saw by Dr. Jeff Pettis, who's a bee researcher out of Beltsville, Maryland, with USDA. And what he was attempting to take queen bees, give them the dose of miticide that they would get under a normal mite treatment. And he was using fluvalinate, coumaphos, and amitraz. And what he was finding was that a lot of the queens were dying well before the LD50. And that's a clear indication that the LD50, which the lethal dose for 50% of the bees, is way too high. And we let the company test the LD50. We don't check on it. And it's a very important number to them because that establishes eventually things like pounds per acre, how much they're going to sell of their product. And to let them pressure their workers, you can imagine being the worker that's doing the LD50, and they're going to breathe down your back, and they're going to say, we need that number to, if you need to redo that, redo it, but that's way too low. And I mean, I can't prove any of that, but he's indicated that there was that the LD50 that they report is way too high. And because he was losing bees at way below the LD50, they were just outright dying. How come we let the company test their own product?
It's just amazing, isn't it? And a lot of those tests aren't really scientifically proven either. Yeah, we interviewed Tom Fairbowl, if you're familiar with him, he's from Colorado. And some of the studies, the EPA, or not the EPA, on the neonicotinoids, they were ridiculous. They were in little small fields and stuff, and they weren't really what a bee does anyway. Right,
yeah. They get to pick the tests, and like with Monsanto, you can't even test their product without their permission. So if you do your own test and you come up with a conclusion, they're going to say, well, you tested our product and this is a proprietary product. You broke our copyright and, we're suing you because you don't have the right to test it without our permission. My daughter's now 20, and when she was 5, I would be out in the garden with her, and she'd approach me with a muddy little garden dress and her hands behind her back, and she'd say, Daddy, close your eyes and open your mouth. And more than likely, it was a slightly muddy strawberry. But that's really hard to do, to close your eyes and open your mouth. But that's exactly what they're asking us to do. They're saying, oh, don't worry, we've tested it. It's fine. Just eat it. Feed it to your kids,
We don't eat it ourselves, but it's all okay.
Yeah, exactly. And we make money if you eat it, and so just eat it.
Yeah, no, shocking.
It is. It is shocking.
The seed collectors are getting prosecuted by Monsanto because they're using their seeds or something, or they're not allowed to collect seeds anymore.
Right. So in New Mexico, the problem is that they introduced GMO alfalfa. Alfalfa is bee pollinated, right? So the pollen can move quite a ways. And you could wind up with alfalfa seed in your field if you let it go to seed. It was pollinated by some bees that got some GMO pollen on them. And then you get sued by Monsanto, even though you didn't want it in the first place. It's absurd. And then when you get sued, you have to defend yourself in Missouri because that's where they file their suit, because that's their headquarters. So the little farmer alfalfa farmer in New Mexico has got to figure out how to get a lawyer to Missouri to try to defend himself. It's just completely ridiculous.
And I'm sure the farmer's got a lot less money than Monsanto.
Exactly. Well, they've got their bank of lawyers all lined up, and the farmer, most farmers don't know what to do. They can't afford a lawyer.
Yeah, I think the justice system in a lot of countries, it's all based on who can afford the best lawyer, isn't it?
Right. We have the best democracy that money can buy. In other words, big money pays to get the rules made their way.
Yeah, exactly. They need to have some rules about campaign spending and just say, okay, everyone can spend this amount of money and that's it.
Yeah, make it public money or something.
Yeah. I think it might have been even Bernie Sanders that said that. He said, they should actually have public money for the campaigning and that's all. That's all they have.
Exactly. Well, I think it was him. And I happen to think he has a lot of good things to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to get him to immigrate to New Zealand.
Yeah. And the thing is, he's been after campaign finance reform forever. And he's still after it. He never gives up. And that I admire in him. He's got some ideas that might be harder to swing, but the idea is it's obvious we need campaign finance reform. One time I got involved in making a little bit of legislation in the state of New Mexico because the state said that we had to pasteurize our honey. And we said, no, we shouldn't have to pasteurize honey. They said, well, you're putting food in a bottle, you're not pasteurizing it, that's against the law. So we found research that indicated that honey is more conducive to bacterial and fungal growth after pasteurization than it is before pasteurization. Because there are enzymes in honey that kill germs. If you denature those enzymes, you lose those enzymes that could help you fight off germs.
Absolutely.
So we said to it was called the Environment Department, the Health Department, look, here's this research, so we should be exempt. And they said, well, maybe you should be exempt, but you're not. And you have to get exempt by amending the law. And then they kind of left us on our own, and we had to figure out what law, and we had to ask for an amendment of the Food Service Sanitation Act. And we found a congressman who would sponsor our amendment, and then we got it worded by lawyers in proper legal language and everything. And then the congressman that promised to sponsor our law told us, gentlemen, let me take you to lunch. I'll just take you to the cafeteria right here in the Capitol. So we said, okay. So we got down to the cafeteria, and he kind of put his hand, crossed his arms on his chest, and he said, you know, gentlemen, sometimes this place makes me sick. And I thought he was referring back to the food. So I said, well, we could go somewhere else. And he said, no, I don't mean the food. He said, look over there. And there was a young man sitting at a table, and he was a legislator. He was in his mid-40s or something. There was a young woman leaning over the table with a fairly large bust and a very low-cut blouse. And the young man was literally sweating. He was red in the face. He was staring at her chest. And the congressman, the elderly congressman that took us down there, said, he is a legislator and she is a lobbyist for the electric company. How do you think he's going to vote on her bill? They know exactly which lobbyist to send to who. There are 4 lobbyists for every legislator in this place right now while we're making rules. And sometimes this place just makes me sick.
Just influencing the votes, eh?
Exactly. They get the rules they want, you know.
Oh, yeah, no, then it's a broken system, isn't it?
It is. But again, I see people saying, okay, the government's not going to do it. The government is not going to clean up the air. The government is not going to make coal clean, and so we're going to buy solar electricity. You can do that here in Texas now. You can say, look, I want to buy all solar and wind electricity. Costs a little bit more, not much. But a lot of people are saying, yeah, it's fine. I'll pay a little more.
Yeah, that's it. You just got to get people to get behind things, eh? And just change from, you know, if the majority do it, it'll happen, won't it?
Right, and that's what like you're about with education. You know, with the podcasts and things. It's basically putting out the news. And I'm thinking I want to put out news, and I want to get beyond the woe is me, this is terrible. Look, I want to show the things that are hopeful, because people need to rally behind a sense of hope instead of just, we're all doomed, you know.
Absolutely. No, you do. You've got to be positive, because you can't be defeatist, eh? And you've got to show people the way to do it and act by example, you know.
Exactly. And I see a lot of people saying that they're going to lead by example. You know, when I was a kid, this would have been in the 50s and 60s. My grandfather was an organic gardener. And people thought he was like communist or kind of weird, you know. And then the hippies came along, and they kind of did their thing with the organic movement, but they mixed it in with free love and LSD, you know, and then they kind of disappeared. But now there are right-wing Christian fundamentalists, environmentalists with organic food buying clubs in churches. It's everywhere, you know. And almost anybody, if you ask them, well, if they cost the same, would you rather buy organic? Oh, yeah, I'd much rather buy organic. And some people, you know, can't afford organic. They're barely making ends meet as it is. But anybody would like it.
Was it Joel Salatin that said that, you know, organic food might be more expensive, but so is cancer?
Cancer's very expensive. I happen to know more than I wish I knew about it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good, is it? I mean, I think if people can grow their own stuff, hey, that's really the best way to go.
Right, it is, yeah.
But you can't. I guess you can't do that in cities, can you? If you haven't got much of a lawn or anything.
You can do a lot more than you think. We moved. I've never lived in a city in my whole life until we moved to this house that I'm in right here in Pflugerville, Texas, near Austin. And we had 2 lawns. We still have some lawn, but we immediately tilled it up and we planted some tomatoes, and my wife has got banana trees planted now. And, one thing she noticed coming from Jamaica, where all the trees tend to be productive, is we got to California first, and she said, wow, there's all these trees and there's nothing to eat. It's oak and cedar, and, you can grow a lot of food if you just watch what you put in your backyard.
Yeah, plant the right things. So you find the bananas, are they maturing okay there? Is it hot enough for them?
Yeah, well, we got to get them through our first winter. But we see people around here with banana trees that are quite large, and so it appears that it is going to be possible. We'll protect them a little bit, and we've got a somewhat cold-hardy version of a banana tree. But figs do very well here. I planted fig trees, and then we can just grow an awful lot of garden. Like, we can grow cold season stuff through the winter, and then hot season stuff in the summer.
Do you get a lot of rain there?
We do get a lot more rain than I'm used to in New Mexico. In New Mexico, we hardly ever got rain. Here, we do get a fair amount of rain. There's a point in the summer where it gets really hot and dry, and if you don't water your garden, you lose it.
You lose it. How do your bees get on there? Do they got enough feed all through the year?
Yeah, so the feral bees here have learned to adapt to a double dearth. So there's a dearth in the winter, and that's very short and mild.
Yeah.
And then there's a kind of intermittent honey flows. And then there's the summer dearth in July and August in particular, when it gets really hot and dry and most of the flowers dry up, and kind of shut down for that as well. And I'm a firm believer in the feral bees finding their own adaptation to the climate and then gathering feral bees to keep in your beehives and minimizing your need to feed bees or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got to get local bees, eh?
Yeah, what kind of bees do you have in New Zealand?
They're mainly Italians, and lately there's been a lot of Carniolians coming in as well. They've started breeding them.
Oh, right.
But yeah, mostly Italian kind of mixed bees.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty good. I like Italian bees.
You're just coming into your spring. We're just going into our fall now.
Yeah, we're spring now, and the swarms are starting to happen. So we've been getting a lot of calls today about bee swarms. So it's definitely starting.
That's good, yeah. I would love catching swarms. It's always fun.
Well, people see it as a failure, but I think, well, it means your hive was pretty strong.
Exactly. I don't know if you've seen any of Tom Seeley's Small Hive.
I haven't. No. I'm reading his book. It's an awesome book, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And you should Google Tom Seeley, Bee Audacious, the Small Hive. And what he's showing is that bees in nature will pick smaller cavities than what we tend to give them. And then they fill up and then they swarm. And that brood break is actually very good because it breaks the mites breeding cycle. And that we should probably look at as a brood break of some form or another for our bees in order to help them with the mites,
Yeah, he touches on that in the Honeybee Democracy, doesn't he? Because a lot of the hives are all quite similar size, and they are very small compared to a commercial Langstroth box, aren't they?
Yeah, they're about 40 liters or 10 gallons, and that's about like one Langstroth box.
Yeah, I know. Small. That's about the perfect size of a swarm lure, isn't it? Or swarm trap.
It is, and that's the size that they can generally overwinter in. Now, he did his studies in New York, and they would vary in other parts of the world, but, yeah.
No, it was amazing research, eh? It was just sad that he had to kill all those bees to do it, but I mean, it was amazing research.
Yeah.
I sort of know him through a friend, so I might have to try and get him on the show at some point, but yeah, he'd be good to talk to.
I met him a few times, and I really enjoyed talking to him.
Yeah, he seems really good, eh? So you mainly keep top bars, don't you, Les?
That's all I'm keeping anymore. I help people with Langstroth still. I used to have Langstroth many years ago, but I really got tired of the frame. Once I got away from it, then to go back and build frames and buy foundation and debate over maybe fairly contaminated beeswax or plastic, and it's all expensive. And with the top bar, they just build their own, and I don't have to enter into the debate about cell size sometimes they raise a lot of drones, and I remember one lady told me, well, if you just let them build their own, they'll build drone comb, and they'll raise a bunch of drones. And I thought, they do. They don't raise near as many. People think, if once they build drone comb, they're just going to raise drones and drones and drones. They usually raise a quick burst of them, and then they fill the drone comb with honey.
Yeah, I've seen that quite often because we use foundationless frames sometimes, and they build drone-sized cells for honey. They know what they're doing, don't they?
Exactly. They're not telling me what size shoe to wear, so why should I tell them what size of comb to live in? Let them run their own business, and let's respect them. Treat them with respect. That's part of us rising together, is saying, I want the bees to rise, and I want to treat them with respect, and I want to not second-guess every little thing. If they want drones, let them have drones. Are they stupid and they don't know? Or are we stupid and we don't know?
They've been around a lot longer than humans.
Exactly.
And do the bees tell you what size shoes to wear, or they not?
They don't seem to care. They let me wear whatever I want. So that's why I let them build whatever size cells they want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they know. I mean, the thing about a bee colony, it's a collective democracy, isn't it? Or not a democracy. It is a democracy. And they decide what to do as a group, and they don't wait for. They're not waiting for a politician to make a decision or someone to be voted in. No, they just do it.
Right, and that's the exact model I want to see. I'm seeing with people is, we have this polar system of Republican and Democrat or conservative and liberal, and people are just starting to say, you know what, we're just going to do the right thing, and we're not going to wait till the government quits their show or figures out how to do the right thing.
No.
Because they're never going to do it. Trump certainly is never going to do it.
You've got to start your own revolution, don't you, Les?
Yeah, a very peaceful revolution.
Yeah, peaceful.
Where we just, pretty soon, we may wind up with our own currency and just say, you know what, you guys govern whatever you want, but I'm busy right now. I'm growing food. I'm raising bees. I don't really have time to deal with you people. And we'll just make our own new society that without a single bullet or a single bomb or any of that.
Yeah. No, you don't. Well, you don't need that, do you?
No, as a matter of fact, I'm sure that violence always clouds our judgment and gets mud and blood and beer in our eyes, is the way I put it. Then all of a sudden, it's all about what they did to us and what we got to do to them, and it becomes us and them, and there is no them. Really, in the end, it's all us.
No, exactly. If you're living in a cutthroat society, everyone ends up with cutthroats, don't they?
Yeah, we'll all have cutthroats. That won't be much fun. Or you get to be king of the hill, and the hill is a pile of bloody corpses. Well, I don't want to be the king of the hill of bloody corpses.
No, you want to be the king of the hill with like some, vegetables and bees going there, growing, and everyone happy.
Yeah, and tigers in the forests, and let's keep this earth together. It's beautiful. It's fun. It's amazing. It's dangerous, but it's amazingly beautiful. It's the only place we have to live. It's the only thing that has ever fed us, ever. We got to keep it together.
Absolutely. But we may need a fence for the tigers. I don't want them coming in our property.
Yeah, well, they have their place. Keep them in their place, yeah.
Because they're still meat eaters, Les.
Yes, they're definitely meat eaters. I saw a YouTube of a tiger attack on a young man who was riding an elephant in India. The tiger just yanked him right off the elephant. Like, wow, that is one beast.
Pretty strong, aren't they? Pretty strong animals. But I think you've got to learn how to live with everything, don't you? And you just control them by having fences or something. I don't know. Yeah,
and we can take our choice. We might have to lose a few of us to tigers or to cancer. I'd rather a tiger eat me.
It'd be quicker, wouldn't it?
Much quicker. I actually had a bout with cancer myself, and I believe it's due to the fact that as a farm worker, even as a beekeeper, I was heavily involved in administering ethylene dibromide to kill wax moths in the supers for 35,000 supers in a big 4,000 hive operation. And I would come out of there with my breath smelling of the ethylene dibromide, for hours. And, it's highly carcinogenic. And it's been banned now, but back then we didn't know any better.
Crazy, eh? Because that was the case. Didn't the bottle have a skull and crossbones on it?
Yeah, it was a barrel. It was a 55-gallon drum. And I was dipping out of it. And I finally cleaned up around it, and I saw the skull and crossbones, and asked my boss, "Why is there a skull and crossbones on this barrel?" He said, "Oh, they think it'll cause cancer, but it won't hurt you, man." And I thought, well, I smell of it all day, for weeks.
Yeah. It's there for a reason, that skull and crossbones. Oh, that's shocking.
Yeah, and it got banned in most of agriculture, and it was still allowed to be used by beekeepers for a while, and now it's been banned from everybody.
Oh, that's good.
It's going to be the same with neonicotinoids. We kill enough of this, and then we realize, oh, this actually didn't work very well.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
We should have figured that out before we killed a bunch of people.
Oh, I think it's all that profit before money, people, eh?
Exactly, and so it goes back to the corporate charters. If we need to figure out how to modify, they have to be globally, I'm afraid, but to modify corporate charters such that the charters have to consider the health and the wealth of their employees and their effect on the natural environment. If all corporations, I think it's going to be the time where the corporations that are doing good are going to do well. And the corporations that are doing bad, we're going to have to just boycott them, ban them, just quit using them. And we'll make the ones that are helping out their employees and the environment thrive. And it was just got to change the nature of corporate law. There's a good, I'll pass that on to a man who wrote about how we have this system that is all about shareholders. So we've got to get the earnings up for this quarter so that we can get good dividends to our shareholders. And that may mean that we have to fire a bunch of employees to cut our costs. But we don't care about our employees. We care about the shareholders. Well, that's an upside-down company because the shareholders aren't there making the day-to-day products that make the company money. So somehow we've got to turn that around and say, no, you have to take care of your business, and then the shareholders get a little bit from that. Great.
Yep, no, I totally agree. And, they've got to look at their employees as first, I think. But that's not how it works, is it?
No, they talk about trickle down, but it isn't trickling down enough.
No. It doesn't work, does it? Trickle down. No. It's a complete myth. And it probably invented by someone at the top, Les, to be honest.
Exactly. And, they say they're the job makers, they're going to trickle it down. But I firmly believe that if some of the stagnant money that's, some people that own lots of yachts and stuff, and they don't even ride them. They don't even get in them and go for a sail. So if some of that stagnant money, and some of these people are doing it, they're, like Bill Gates is doing a pretty good job of it, bring that money down to the working class people. Those people wouldn't hoard it. They would quickly buy tires for their car, shoes for their kids. They'd use it. The money would circulate through the economy 10 and 15 and 20 times. And it would eventually percolate back up to the top anyway. But I think if you took the top down a little bit and spread a little bit of wealth to the working class, the whole economy would rise. And the people at the top would rise higher than they are now.
Absolutely.
But they'd rise with all of us, And it's a part of that whole all rise together again.
You heard of that principle of a universal income for everybody?
I have heard of it.
Yeah, everyone's given a certain amount of money every week, for not for work, but just as like a benefit kind of thing. That's an interesting idea, isn't it?
Right, and because I like it because another way I kind of look at it, if you look at our bodies, we're made up of all different cells, and we have skin cells and nerve cells and blood vessel cells and blood cells and muscle and all that, right?
Yeah.
And if you took a nerve cell out of somebody's body and put it in a microscope, and you put a skin cell in a different microscope, and you looked in both of them, you'd say, well, they're not even remotely related. They don't look at all alike. And yet they completely cooperate with each other in the body to make us, right?
Yeah.
And even in our bodies, there's other kinds of cells. There's bacterial and fungal cells and even little tiny arthropods that live in our eyebrows. And they're little creatures that we need. They can't live without us and we can't live without them. And they're part of what we call us. And they all cooperate. And the blood is like the money in this multicellular creature, right? Blood absorbs oxygen and food, and it freely circulates. And any cell that needs it gets what it needs from the blood. And there's no, I'm going to get more than I need, I'm going to take it from you. There's nowhere to take it to. It's just there to serve the purpose. And that's what we need money to do. It's not to be hoarded and I'm going to take it from everybody and get twice as much or 10 times as much. What good would that do you? We need money that's more just take what you need and live.
Yeah, exactly.
Bees and honey is the same way. Bees in a beehive, they're all cooperating to make the hive good. No bee is going to steal honey from another bee. What good would it do? That would just, as a matter of fact, in the cells in the body, if a cell starts stealing more oxygen and nutrition than it needs and reproducing more than it should, that's a cancer cell.
Yeah, no, it'd be interesting idea, if the world was run like a bee colony.
Yeah, exactly. That would be cool. And Tom Seeley's book could help us figure out how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. What would be the closest society to a bee society that we've got now?
Well, that's a good question. Like, where there's, I sometimes think some of the native cultures that had clans, like the chief wasn't really the one in charge. He was the negotiator, what do we do about this and how do we get them to cooperate? And, it wasn't so hierarchical. The hierarchy seems to be part of the problem. And really, I look at it from the point of view of Christianity. There was there's the child under the mother, who's under the father, who's under the pastor, who's under the local archbishop or whatever, and all the way up to the pope. And that hierarchical system seems to be what then becomes this funneling of wealth as well as a political power.
Yeah, and you get that disconnect, don't you, of the top to the bottom.
And you get abuse. The top abuses the bottom.
Yeah, and they get away with it, don't they? No, it's true. Exactly.
Yeah, because they get to make the rules.
Oh, it's lovely talking to you. It's been good.
Likewise, I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, cool.
I will.
And
I'm going to look up your podcast and start paying more attention.
Yeah, we'll listen to the one with Tom Theobald. That's a really good one. If you're going to look a bit more about pesticides and stuff.
I really want to look at it, yeah.
Yeah, no, and there's one by Hank Tenicus. Have you heard of him? He's a toxicologist.
No, I haven't heard of it.
He's talking about neonicotinoids as well. I'll drop you an email later and I'll send you the links to those shows. You can have a look at them.
Cool. It's
all good, but I think you're right. You got to stay positive and think of solutions, rather than just moaning about problems. I guess some of the stuff you're bringing out is quite good. Like I've seen a few of your Facebook posts and stuff.
Facebook is interesting. It gets me. I got in some heated arguments, but it all came out good. What I like is that there's people who are not treatment-free and who think that treatment-free is going to make a mite bomb or a disease bomb, and spread mites and disease everywhere. And, if we can talk civilly, we can agree to have a nice debate. And we may not totally ever agree, but we really come to more of a common ground of recognizing that, treatments aren't the best solution. In the long run, nobody says toxicity is a good thing put in the beehive, but and they view it as an evil, a necessary evil. If we could breed bees that didn't need it, that would be a better thing. And so their worry is that, you're going to tell people that are beginner beekeepers and don't know any better, and they're going to get really bad mites. And I tell people, if you're not sure, you might need to come up with the least toxic mite treatment you can come up with, but you need to learn how to look for mites, and you need to learn to get competent and then join us in breeding. Because the real solution is breeding the mite-resistant bee.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you done any research into areas like I know a lot of African nations that don't treat for mites, and they seem to survive okay. I mean, what have you done much studies on that?
Well, yeah, and in Jamaica, the beekeepers there were all using Apistan, and then the Rastafarian beekeepers, Rastafarian philosophy is very organic. They don't believe in using pesticides, so they couldn't use the Apistan. Then I asked them at some of the bee meetings in Jamaica, so how are your bees? And they said, well, they're fine. And then all the other beekeepers said, wait a minute, we're spending $600 Jamaican per hive, and your bees are fine without it? And now this guy's telling us that the Apistan isn't good for the bees. So they dropped it like a hot potato, and they don't really see much mite damage.
Oh, that's amazing. Did they have like big losses at the start?
Yeah, they did at the start. Yeah, and I had that same thing in New Mexico. The first few years, I lost a lot of bees, and it was obvious that it was raw mite. You know, they were covered in raw mite. You'd see 5 and 6 mites on almost every bee. But then eventually, the losses got less, and eventually the feral bees in New Mexico disappeared. And then, because I used to do bee removal, I'd do 50 a year, and then all of a sudden there was none, and there was no buildings infested with bees. And then in about 5 years there was a few. In about 8 years there was quite a few. In about 10 years there was tons of them.
Did you think that's because all the feral colonies were died because of mite loads?
Right, but a few survived, but there were very few, and then they began to reproduce, and pretty soon they came back. I think most of the feral bees around the world are mite resistant.
Well, that's probably the answer, eh? Because I think I've heard stories from South Africa. I haven't talked to anyone there yet, but they didn't treat for varroa much when it arrived, and all the bees have become resistant to it now.
Yeah.
Or resistant to them. So it's just that initial loss, isn't it? If you're a commercial guy, it's hard to take a loss like that, isn't it?
Right, and that's where I say that, in the meetings here in the United States, like the national meetings, there's kind of a divide between commercial and hobby beekeepers. And in a way, the commercial beekeepers sort of seem to have the attitude, well, we're the real beekeepers, and you guys are just kind of playing around with it,
Yeah, we've got to make it a collective, don't we, to make a change.
It is changing, and even just the entrance of women into beekeeping is a huge change.
Oh yeah, much better beekeepers, eh?
Yeah, but I remember when New Mexico beekeepers was all white men, old white men, and now it's actually more women than men.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like most beekeeping meetings are all old white men with grey hair.
Yeah, exactly.
It is changing, eh? I think that's really positive. And I think it's awesome to see young people getting involved as well, eh? So I try and encourage all of them when they try and get involved,
Oh, yeah. And a lot of young people are getting involved. And that really gives me a lot of hope. I see, because these young people are recognizing what kind of world they want to have kids in. And they're saying, well, we've got to change it. And they're really putting energy into it.
Well, that's the thing, eh? It's going to be their generation, their kids' generation are going to suffer from a lot of the problems.
Exactly.
That's when the chickens come home to roost, isn't it? That's what's going to happen in 30, 40 years, isn't it?
Exactly, and they're putting a lot of energy into it, and they're very energetic young people,
Yep. Oh, that's good. We need to encourage them, don't we?
Absolutely. Every chance I get.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we try and do that with the podcast too. But, just to get information out there for people, and they can make their decisions. And
exactly. Well, education and getting that news out is what it's all about now.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And I think alternative messages as well, not the stuff that's on Fox News.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Which I think that's one good thing about the internet, eh? Because people can get other news. They don't have to listen to, the ABCs and the NBCs of the world, do they?
No, and the young people are listening, like they're getting their news with Jon Stewart and Yeah. So the young people are getting their news by very alternative means. They're kind of the networks are losing them.
Well, that's it. They're not. A lot of them even don't even have phones and stuff. Right? They have mobiles, but they're not watching TV. They're watching the internet, aren't they?
Yeah, they're totally. They don't have landline phones. They're mostly watching the internet on their computers or their cell phones.
Yeah, absolutely. It's awesome. Oh, it's been lovely talking to you, Liz.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too. Thank you.
And we must do it again. But no, it's been lovely talking to you.
You too.
And I'll drop you an email soon, and we'll have to do it again.
Oh, good. Sounds like a good idea.
Yep. Thanks, Liz.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, eh? Have a good night, eh?
Bye-bye.
Wow, that was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I never knew that footwear had so much to do with beekeeping.
Have your bees spoken to you recently?
Yes, indeed, and they sure will have a lot to say. I'm sure of it, and some really interesting comments there and views. I just think it's the other thing that made me think of this is companies that sell soft drinks and all the plastic bottles they produce. Man, that is just. They should be the ones who pay for the rubbish side of things for that.
Yes, indeed. And did you see recently there was a study of water bottles, and most of them contain little bits of plastic inside the water?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Anyway, I think that there's some truth with corporates being responsible for the rubbish and all the stuff they're creating, and also how it impacts the ordinary consumer. So, very interesting. Thanks so much, Les. That's awesome.
Yes, indeed. And all those articles that Les talked about, those studies, I've actually done some research and found all the links so you can read those studies yourself and have a look.
That's wonderful, Gary. Well done.
No worries. And all the show notes, so you don't have to worry about stopping your car. Just get home and go kiwi.bz/Les, and you'll find all the show notes there.
Yeah, and that's on your amazing app, eh?
It's on the app and it's on the browser.
Awesome,
yes.
Awesome.
If you enjoyed this show, then please subscribe to the show in your podcast app, or even download our free app that is available for phones and tablets.
Awesomeness, yeah. Don't be left out in the cold, Dale.
Okay, well, we'll catch you in a couple of weeks, eh?
Yeah, thanks, guys. See ya.